Gelatin is a great snack to cool off with. It's easy to chew, it's wiggly, it's fun, and it can be the last thing your party wants to think about when entering a dungeon. Now, by tradition, gelatinous cubes make for great Roombas in dungeon sweeping, cleaning all but magical and metal objects alike. Rats, dust, cobwebs, pesky adventurer bones, you name it, it's all gone by one run-by. But like many people, running a classic monster like this can become stale, even when taking into consideration alterations to its form and strength, like the black pudding. But, not to worry, for I am here to show you how to spice things up with your gameplay. In today's video, how to the Gelatinous Cube. Now let's talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of these wonderfully gooey creatures, and what to expect in a traditional combat. Now first and foremost, they do have a low AC, 6, but their HP of 84 more than makes up for it. These are like barbarians. They may not have the highest AC, but they can take a lot of hits. Their speed is 15 though. They're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Most players will be able to outrun them even if they're crawling. With saving throws and stat bonuses only in its strength and con, this thing is not going to avoid damage nor resist magical or non-magical effects. So don't worry about dodging or planning with this thing. Go straight into the combat. Speaking of combat, it has a couple of options. As in stealth, it has pseudo-invisibility with its transparency. As long as it stands still, you might not be able to see it as well. It has two main attacks. The pseudopod, where it strikes out with its body, or the engulf attack, comboed with the ooze cube feature. Other notes include that it has a blind sight of 60 feet, so in that range it's great, but being blind to anything outside of that range is a pretty rough downside. Not to mention, with its low wisdom, it may be nearly impossible for the gelatinous cube to locate where the damage is coming from, much less be able to catch up to it to make any significant progress. With great condition immunities like blinded, charmed, deafened, exhausted, frightened, and prone, this thing is not going to be down and out for the count anytime soon. One downside is that its only damage type is acid. This could be very problematic for you as a dungeon master if your party is immune or even resistant to it. But because of that, keep a marker on their item's HP, as gear can take damage too, but only if you rule it so. There is a rule in the game that mitigates this by stating that effects like this one, and others like fire attacks of similar nature, don't affect held weapons and gear in the same way that they would like a backpack. Now, most of the time, these cubes excel in cornering, smothering, and otherwise trapping a single, or maybe even two, party members and then engulfing them, doing lingering damage while fighting off other members with their pseudopod strikes. In many games I've seen and ran, it's a classic and effective strategy to keep players from moving in certain directions, or otherwise progressing through the dungeon without real danger of losing either their gear or their lives. So, with the stats and basics covered, what can you do to shake up these monsters just a little bit more than normal? To start, think about the ability Engulf. It's one of their main features. The creature who cannot move or otherwise chooses not to move away from the cube when it attempts this ability automatically fails the saving throw. Movement is such a critical part of D&D. That's why flying, swimming, increased walking speed, and other weird forms of movement, like burrowing, are uncommon and used by many players and game masters alike in the way that they are. But the cube benefits double from the party not being able to move at all. If you can pin the players down in one way or another, maybe use creatures that are immune to acid, that grab a hold of a party member and drag them into the cubes by force. Maybe chains that fly out of the wall with magic and snag the spellcaster long enough for the cube to run them over. Whatever you can do to keep one or two party members from moving so you can go in for that first vital strike is important, because movement is also the greatest weakness of the cube. At 15 feet a turn, these things are outpaced by anything that isn't just a snail. So keeping your players focused on everything but the cube until it's time to reveal them is going to be extremely important on mitigating that weakness. You can use them in many ways. You can hide them in the ceiling, you can have them hide around a corner, but remember that invisibility trait comes in handy. It's natural stealth. Something you can also do is use them unconventionally. Most people might think that when you're in a cramped space, they might anticipate this kind of move. They might assume that there is going to be a gelatinous cube. So why not surprise the players by doing something completely unorthodox? But imagine that instead, the cubes overpopulate, eating their way under a city slowly, silently, melting stone, rock, ore, and people alike. They chew through massive tunnels underground, eating anything in their way. And suddenly, the city under which they were attracted to collapses. Now, massive crowds of people are trapped under rubble, getting lost in the tunnels that the gelatinous cubes chewed through. Hundreds of these things, an army of slowly moving, tanky oozes, would be nightmare fuel for any party to deal with. Imagine the chaos that would ensue. The party has to delve into dungeons that are exactly one cube of size? Perfectly sized for each cube? What if they flanked on both sides? What if there's multiple cubes in a line? They can walk through each other. They can walk through the party. Don't be afraid to mix up the abilities in homebrew as well. What about a cube that instead of doing acid, drains the moisture from your body with chemicals? Or a cube that's boiling hot to the touch and inflicts fire damage? Or maybe it's made of literal clouds, shocking its victims with lightning damage and blinding them with a flurry of storm clouds when it swallows them. The strength of the cubes lies within its ability to really pin down, smother, and corner a party in the right environment. And if you can keep the party from running, or otherwise catch them off guard with its natural stealth, you can make running the gelatinous cube that much more interesting and horrible for all of your players. Thanks for listening in to How to Gelatinous Cube. If you're interested in more of the How To series, go ahead and make a suggestion down below on which monster I should do next.
If streaming games, playing D&D, talking about all things nerdy, and even embarrassing myself on live is good enough for you, well, maybe check out my content. And thanks for watching this one. I really appreciate it. If you need to find me, go ahead and look at my links down below, and maybe check out some of my other videos on TikTok and Twitch.